Okay. My next guest tonight is Simon Turner, who led a group of basketball players to take over a council sports facility that had failed twice and has now turned it into a successful sports centre for the community. It's based in Edinburgh. It's called Crags Community Sports Centre, although I do believe the name is changing. Simon Turner, please come and be our guest tonight. Change sheets, excuse me. So Simon, before anyone opens their mouth, they'll know that, like me, you're not from these parts.
No, not from Australia either.
Not from Australia.
Let's get that clear.
Absolutely. No, I love New Zealand. I've been there a couple of times. I think the people are fantastic. They're very practical, can-do, hands-on, kind of pioneering type attitude. Does that resemble the type of personality you have?
Well, I'm not exactly a pioneering sheep farmer, as you can tell.
There's lots of ways to be a pioneer.
But yeah, New Zealand has a kind of resilience to it, and it's on the edge of popular culture as well. So it's got a history of people working together to turn the land over into something productive, and that's continued on. But what's lost is that it's actually on the kind of edge of popular culture. It's connected very much to what happens in popular culture in America, but also has roots to the United Kingdom, has its own kind of different cultural background as well. So the creativity that comes out of a small country like New Zealand, I think, is really relevant. And I see some parallels here in Scotland as well, yeah.
What sort of parallels can you see? Tell us a little bit more about, maybe, I find New Zealand is very entrepreneurial naturally, they have to make stuff happen. Yeah. And what do you see as the parallels with Scotland?
Well, there's creative industries that are starting to flourish in Scotland. Particularly, you can see it coming out of colleges and universities in places like Glasgow and Dundee, and that's happening a lot in New Zealand as well. So there's a kind of shift. There's a kind of my father-in-law is from Paisley originally. He's a chemist and rose to senior management in a kind of manufacturing firm, and he's very traditional kind of wonderful guy. Enjoys his whiskey. So there's that great aspect of Scotland, and then there's a new aspect which seems to be emerging kind of in front of us at the moment. You can see it in Edinburgh with the kind of collaborations that are going on between different students and different groups. So yeah, it'll be intriguing to see how it rolls out.
And what sort of things? I know that Scotland has been held up as an example around the world for the conditions and the policies and the infrastructure around social entrepreneurship. You're aware of that story. It's a reality. Scotland's leading the way in social enterprise.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I mean, is it? I mean,
aren't we?
I don't know. I've never done a world tour of social enterprises, but
give it a few years.
Yeah,
you'll be able to leave the office.
Maybe, yeah. But like, as a society, do we really, how highly do we really value social enterprise? How highly do we really value unique solutions? Yes, there's support for social enterprise in Scotland. I've been the recipient of that, and from people who work in this building, and been very grateful for that. But is it at the core of how we operate, how we live our lives? Is it the fundamental paradigm of business in Scotland? No, and it's a million miles away from being that. So all that support is great, and it's taking us in the right direction. But let's not delude ourselves as an industry that we're being incredibly well supported, because we're not. There's people that could make those big decisions, but obviously have a vested interest in kind of the status quo. I don't mean that in terms of conspiracy theories, but it's going to take a lot more really high quality work to convince people outside of our sector that this should be the prevailing paradigm of how we do business. Not so that social enterprise isn't a subcategory in and of itself.
Of enterprise per se.
Yeah, it's how we do business.
There's many people in the audience tonight studying social entrepreneurship. Although it's a relatively new term. We understand it, we've been around it. There's people studying it, shaping it, policies, funding, all sorts of things. How do you think that we can get the message out about social enterprise, and whether it can or should be the dominant economic paradigm?
Well, we have to do it one good quality business model at a time. So one thing that's interesting about social enterprises is that they often start with the need. A lot of businesses start with the supply and not the demand. Like, I'm really good at making widgets, so I'll just focus on that and hope that people want to buy my widgets. Whereas social enterprise often focuses on a need, a problem, right? And somebody pissed off as well and wanting to solve that problem. So there's actually a really strong kind of customer-centered focus to social enterprise. So we've got to do that one business model at a time. And I think a lot of work could be done to share, in a technical sense, the business models that different social enterprises use, because it's quite different at times to private business. So what could private business or corporations learn from the way that social enterprises construct themselves? Because we're kind of accidentally brilliant at times.
Accidentally brilliant. Yeah. That's a great thing.
Not
Can we tweet that? We are accidentally brilliant.
No, don't include myself in that. But,
you should.
you know, we, like, Frankie didn't set out to be a business genius. I'm sure he solved a problem, but along the way developed a business model that really worked and showed that, you know, you don't need to come from, you know, a strong academic background.
So tell me, how did you persuade a bunch of basketball players to take on trying to grapple an asset off the council and turn that round into a thriving business? How on earth do you convince a bunch of people and all the stakeholders, etc., that this is a good idea and meets a need?
Well, there's two ways you have to do it. You have to do it on a philosophical level and a practical level. So the practical level is, I believe, what's called a specific limited ask. And so what I did is pull together basketball players and parents of the basketball club that I volunteer for, and asked them to help me with a specific project, which was to examine the business case for this failed sports centre, and to help us put together a model that might work. So I got an architect, a fundraising consultant, a CEO, a former facility manager, who are all parents or connected to the club in some way. And I remember the night we sat around one of the kitchen table at somebody's house, and so it's really specific. So that's how I helped them in, right? So little do they know that, you know, those
how many years
yeah,
later?
3 years later, those people are all trustees. Yeah. So people are more willing to get involved if they know something really specific to their skill set. It's limited. They can walk away from it if they want to. It's their choice, and it's an ask. It's something that I'm appreciating their skills and what they can bring to it. And a lot of people would volunteer if they were asked something really specific and limited, in the right way. So that's the practical level of how you manage those kind of relationships. And then the bigger philosophical aspect to it is, you know, forming a vision, is having an idea and forming a vision for how we can all move together to accomplish a goal. And when you're trying to save a failed facility, that's relatively easy, right? Because the place was closed. Now we want to open it, right? So if we achieve that, if we open it and keep it open, then we've achieved that vision. So it's quite clearly defined and reasonably attainable. So now that we've been going 3 years, our next big challenge was, how do we mushroom? So how do we create a new unifying vision? Because the facility's been saved. So now what do we do next to really engage people in?
And what are you going to do next? And more importantly, not just what, if that's publicly disclosable.
Yeah, no.
If it's public, not just what or who do you need to help you get to that next place of growth?
Well, social enterprises need partnerships, because we're all operating in our silos to a large extent. So collaborating together has real possibilities. So what we're going to do is we're dropping the name Community Sports Centre. People call us the Crags anyway, and changing the meaning that we communicate to the people that we come in contact with. So moving beyond just a community sports centre and into a space that can be yours to do with what you want. So we have a lot of really interesting, unique kind of communities of common interest using the Crags, and those people are quite different. So we're going to crowdsource the next 3 years of the Crags.
Wow, that's a big ambition.
Yeah, we're stroke stupid, depending on which way you look at it.
You've got to be brave.
Yeah. So in the new year, we're doing quite a bit of work on this, and in the new year, we're going to launch a campaign called 30 Days, 30 Ideas.
30 days, 30 ideas.
Yeah.
1st of January.
No, well, it depends how. No, 1st of January, no, not 1st of January, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Nobody will be awake.
No, including me, hopefully. So we're going to publish 30 different project or business ideas, one a day for 30 days.
Are they all around the Crags?
Yep, connected to the Crags in some way. Could be really small, using our the grass space at the front of our building to connect kids in the local primary school to retired people in the area that like gardening into a shared gardening project.
And where do the ideas come from?
Well, that idea just came from me, but the ideas can come from any source whatsoever. So passionate local individuals could get involved and come to us with an idea like that. Different groups that are already out there, micro businesses that are based around one area of common interest. Could be other social enterprises that are looking for facilities. So that's a really small idea. We could go to the other end of the spectrum, which is to build another version of the Crags, which would be a really interesting project. Let's say combine social housing with a community-run sports centre on the same block of land. Collaborate together so that the local residents have ownership over the facility. Work with a housing association to build that facility, and then we run it. Right, so that's from micro to macro, and everything in between. We'll be publishing 30 different ideas. I've got 12 ideas at the moment. All
yours or others?
Well, none of my ideas are really my idea, to be honest. They're all just some adaptation of something that I've come across. So then others can contribute during that 30 days. And then at the end of the 30 days, we'll have an ideas marketplace. So we'll bring everyone who's contributed to the project together in one place. We'll have boards up for each of the 30 ideas, and we'll connect people to those ideas. The Crags may only take forward a small amount, but other people can take forward other ideas. We might bundle ideas together.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Anything could happen.
Anything. So it's interesting that it's interesting for me that you've taken on a facility. It was the council's, and they've given it to you as for peppercorn rent, I believe. And community assets are. There's a lot of talk about community assets because we've got the Community Empowerment Bill and councils trying to work out ways of being able to give to the right community groups the right type of asset. I'm sitting on a steering group at the moment, joint steering group, looking at the policy framework for transfer of community assets from the council to community groups. I'm very interested to know from your experience of taking on an asset from the council, one, how would you advise a community group to go about that? Would you advise them to do it? And two, what advice would you give to the policy shapers who are trying to create a framework for giving assets away to community groups? I say giving community assets away. How could they make the best policy that would actually work for community groups?
Well, number two, transfer assets, not liabilities. That would be a good start. That would be a good step in the right direction. Don't just palm off the
bad stuff,
the rubbish that you aren't good enough to run. But firstly, it's got to go beyond passion. It can't be about saving our local hall. Like that might save it, but will it keep it going? So it can't just be about passion. And with regard to asset transfer, what you're talking about is a facility that is being run inefficiently, right? And you can define efficiency in lots of different ways, both economic, social, use of resources, etc. So it's being used in an efficient way, and you've got to change how it's going to be used in order for it to be successful long term. So you've got to re-engineer the business model. So any group that's wanting to take on a facility has to get right into the nitty-gritty of how is that facility being run at the moment, where is the money going, what are the future possibilities, what changes could be made, etc. So you've got to really examine the business model in great detail, and that's what we did. And we make a couple of fundamental changes to the business model, which just unlocked the potential of the facility straight away.
Like what? What were the two?
Well, most facilities, the two biggest costs are utilities and staff. I could tell you a very long boring story about how challenges with utilities. So I'll skip that bit. But staffing is was the number one cost of the Crags, and a lot of the council-run facilities are overstaffed. You just got to walk into them and just know that straight away, that they're overstaffed. There's people there not necessarily doing a lot, or have to be there in order to or have to be there in order to keep the facility open, etc., etc. So it was really clear to us that staffing was the element that that really brought the Crags down, combined with a really kind of haphazard way of generating revenue, a really sort of ad hoc reactionary way of generating revenue. So we just flipped the business model over, re-engineered it, so we don't staff the building in evenings and weekends. So our customers become volunteers. So our customers are truly at the at the heart of the facility, because they run the facility in the evenings and weekends. They open it, they close it. They don't clean it, they don't clean the floors, we do all of that, but we don't have to have a janitor sitting at a desk.
No.
Right. And I just kind of threw various policies and health and safety out the window.
La la la.
Yeah, I just sort of buried my head under that for a while, and that's what unlocked the business model, because what we were able to do is take the cost saving from staffing, which was considerable, because it's a local authority, right? So of course everything, they couldn't have one staff member, they had to have two in case the first one
had a heart attack,
fell and hurt themselves or something. I don't know.
The phone went and they had to answer.
Yeah. So we took that cost saving, gave half that to the customer, so reduced the cost to them of using the facility, and banked the other half. So our prices are lower than the local authority, but our marginal revenue is higher. Right? So our business model just works better just from that one.
And
change.
are the leisure trusts looking at what you're doing? Your competitors, are they?
I don't think so. Nobody's ever sort of approached us, and the council are well aware of it. But to be fair to leisure trusts, they're not necessarily set up to be enterprising, to be small. It's not a criticism of them. It's just the reality. You get to any organisation gets to a certain size, and bureaucracy kicks in, right? Yep. And because it can't be all about what Frankie knows, and it can't be Frankie solving problems, because there's too many problems for Frankie to solve, right? And same with me. So for any leisure trust gets to a certain size, they have to put systems, procedures in place, and they have to rely on those rules to be implemented rather than through the ingenuity of the people that work for them. Or at least to do that would be really, really difficult. So in that way we've got a source of sustainable competitive advantage, because I don't see our major competitors, Edinburgh Leisure or schools, replicating that key holder model. Right? I don't see them doing that, and I'm not in a hurry. It would take quite a major shift to do that. So in that regard, we've always got a source of competitive advantage. And then the other aspect that we re-engineered was just the relationship. It was connected to the key holder system. It's just the revenue.
They're earning downstairs.
Yeah. We'll be down there later, I'm sure. It's the way that we generate revenue and retain customers in particular, because when you share the space and you make people feel like it's theirs, not too far, just only up to a certain point,
no cleaning the toilets.
No cleaning the toilets. Then they'll take ownership of that facility. They'll feel like it's theirs for the 2 hours that they use it, or whatever. If you then respond to their needs, make small modifications. Somebody suggested we put in a ballet bar in our studio the other day, so we could expand to a wider range of dance groups. I thought, great idea. So we'll action that. So if they feel like they're part of the facility and that they own it, they'll be loyal to you.
And you're responsive to their needs.
Yeah. So our customer retention rate is really high.
So if you're talking to any new aspiring or even an existing social entrepreneur, give us 2 or 3 top tips for staying healthy and well in yourself and a thriving business.
Well, exercise is a big part of it. Frankie's totally right about getting to the gym. I'm not up at 4:15 in the morning, but I cycle to work and back, and things like that make a big difference. I take quite a strong interest in my own mentality and the way my mind works, and so that's kind of very similar for a lot of entrepreneurs. That's not unique to social entrepreneurship. But achieving that balance, I think, is necessary if you have the right business model. And I know I keep coming back to this kind of geeky point about, it's not about business plan, it's about the business model. And if I want to be able to work walk away from the centre at 5 o'clock or whatever and go, do bath time at home with my girls, then I have to put in place a business model that allows me to do that. Like, I'm not going to be a slave to the business. And we're kind of martyrs. We're kind of martyrs to the cause sometimes. If I'm honest, I see that. It's about generating the model that you need to enable you to walk away. So one of the things that social enterprise doesn't do very well is doesn't create models that are scalable or repeatable very often. There's something down here, Social Bite, the cafe, they're scalable and repeatable. I don't know those guys, but from what I can see on the surface, they do some awesome work. So that's a really good example. Like, that's a flagship social enterprise for me, because their business model is scalable and repeatable. So by taking that kind of approach, you can free yourself from some of the the challenges and the kind of personal challenges that come with running a business.
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom.
You're welcome.
Simon, good luck with the Crags as you take it forward, and the 30 days, 30 ideas?
Yep, we'll be launching probably in January. So
okay, we'll look out for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.